Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kim Barrett Show. I am your host, Kim Barrett, and in today's episode, we meet up with and we have a good chat with the one and only Mr. Brian Kurtz of Boardroom fame. Grew a business called Boardroom Direct Mail Company to over $150 million. That's $1 million, right? $150 million. Now, who is this for? Why should you check out this episode? Well, this one is like, if you know who Brian is, direct marketing, direct mail, copywriting, you might be like, oh, do I have to be a marketer to listen to this episode? Now, I would absolutely say no. If you are a business owner or entrepreneur wanting to grow, the principles that Brian shares are absolutely out of this world. We cover off on the 100-0 principle. We cover off on how to build and grow your network offline. I know, right? What's this digital marketing Kim guy talking about offline stuff for? What? Right, and then we also cover off on a few stories about the late, great Dan Kennedy, who on the day of recording just announced that he was basically on his deathbed. So this is one full of stories, full of fun. It's actually in two parts. So this is introducing you to part one of the Brian Kurtz interview. So look forward to seeing you guys on the inside. And as always, if you need any help with your marketing or anything else, head over to www.freeusb.com.au. We got you covered, just cover postage and handling and we'll sort you out. Cheers, see you in the episode. Okay, you guys, today I am very excited, and my evening, his morning, to have the legend that is Mr. Brian Kurtz here, author of new book, Over Deliver, which I've just finished reading a couple weeks ago, and it is phenomenal. And I've got him on today to share some of his wisdom with us around marketing, around really everything in business, because I think that a lot of times people think of marketing and they go, oh, it's just marketing, but it really applies in so many different areas of business. And that's what I'm excited about today. So Brian, thank you so much for making the time to join me today.
Really excited to be with you, Kim. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now we were chatting just before, and I normally like to do a little bit of an intro about people and tell them, but after reading in Over Deliver, a little bit of your story and background and the people that you've rubbed shoulders with and worked with over the years, I'd love for you to share with the audience who you are, what a bit of your background is, so that we can really dive into things today.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on that, because it's all fluff until I start talking about some stuff that people want to hear. But the quick history is that I spent, I'll do 34 years quickly. I spent 34 years at Boardroom. Boardroom was an iconic publisher and direct marketer that is, we did, every medium. We mailed millions of names. We did millions of impressions, and it was basically to sell newsletters and books. And, so it's a fairly simple business, but a simple business that ended up going to $157 million from about $5 million when I got there in 1981. And the 34 years, I'm going to gloss over it and we can get into some details because there's a lot of detail in the book. And my book is not a memoir. It's much more, telling the stories to illustrate various fundamental points regarding direct marketing. But it was a great ride. It was just an amazing, business to consumer business that helped consumers in all areas, in health, in finance, in personal development. And it was just a great ride. My first 10 years, I was the list manager. And what that means, I always say I was most likely to be voted list manager in my high school yearbook. And I fell into that. And then after 10 years of just being totally immersed in lists and selling our list and renting our list to the direct mail industry, I ended up getting so obsessed with marketing, and then ended up running the marketing. I became a partner in the business, an equity partner in the business, and it was just a great ride. And then in, I guess the point in 2014, I'm all the way up to 2014, so that's good. 2014, I hosted an event. Marty Edelston, who's the founder of Boardroom, passed away in 2013. And I sent, it was an interesting thing because I sent I just had a brainstorm that, like, why don't I do a big tribute event to Marty? And that event, I remember sending a a fax to Dan Kennedy. He doesn't do email. And I said, what about this tribute event? And he said he'd be interested. And so in 2014, I organized the Titans of Direct Response, which was an amazing event. I mean, I just had everybody there. I had Joe Sugarman, and I had Jay Abraham, and I had, the best copywriters, Gary Bensavenga, and just an amazing event. And of course I had Dan. That event in September of 2014 kind of spurred my next career, which was the Titans marketing. Because after the end of the year, I realized that, I didn't really, Boardroom was doing okay, but it wasn't, what I really wanted to do anymore. And so I took Jay Abraham's advice and started realizing that if I did it, I really have an obligation to teach it. So that was really the element of going out on my own, Titans marketing. I have 2 mastermind groups. I wrote one book, The Advertising Solution, and then I wrote my most recent book, Over Deliver. And I also sell Gene Schwartz's great books, Breakthrough Advertising and Brilliance Breakthrough. I sell Swipe Files. And I have 2 mastermind groups that are my pride and joy. They're just amazing groups of multi-channel direct response marketers. And so now, instead of a business to consumer business to millions, I'm a business to business to thousands or a few thousand. And my mastermind groups are only like 50 people. But it's sort of like now I'm going to teach and learn with the best direct response marketers, and then they go out and multiply, and that's a different way to reach millions of people. So it's kind of the same mission, but done, from a B2B area than from a B2C. So that's my career in a nutshell, but there's a lot more in there, but I'm not going to do 40 years of marketing, because I think we want to talk about some stuff that's in my book and whatever. So, and you can ask any question.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I got to admit, it's very tough getting your emails every week when you do start to promote something. Because literally every time I'm like, oh God, I just have to buy it, because the stuff, like the way that you write, I just love it, that you treat everyone, like it's part of your family, and like the whole building a tribe. I think you do tremendously well in the way that you articulate things, and I love every time. And I think I've got a tab open in one of my browsers I closed just so that we keep the bandwidth, because it's rainy here in Perth. But I think there's one you sent out last week, and I was like, I've just got to buy this. Like, it's just every time you share, and the knowledge that you're sharing, and some of the history that you cover is just tremendous. And like you mentioned, like the some of the greats that have passed away, like Gene Schwartz. I think Dan Kennedy, I believe, has just announced, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that he's passed away, which is really, really sad. And I think that you've done a tremendous job of bringing a lot of these things back to people that don't really may not know who they are, and new upcoming marketers, and they can kind of miss over these things. Because one of the big things I got, and I always get from your stuff, is around the whole labeling of direct marketing. And when people say that, if you say that you're a direct marketer, they're like, oh, so like, are you doing like letterbox drops, or like what actually is that?
Yeah,
and I like your definition.
Marketing became synonymous, It's not. I mean, but that's why I always say direct response marketing. So at least I can, it's not that direct marketing's the definition has changed. It's just that people's perception of the definition has changed. Going back to the greats of marketing, I just want to say one thing, because and we'll talk about the resource site for my book, which is incredible. But at overdeliverbook.com, I've got I've got 11 bonuses that are incredible that you get if you buy my book. And the interesting thing about that resource site, that is the subtle thing. The obvious thing is, like, the book's called Over Deliver, so I had to over deliver on the bonuses.
Yeah.
The subtle piece, and I'm really, and now with Dan Kennedy, I assume he's on his deathbed, which is just tragic. But when I did the resource site, I thought of the movie Coco, which is a Pixar film that depicts it's about the Mexican holiday of Dia de Muertos, and it's a holiday that celebrates the dead, not mourns the dead, celebrates the dead. And the one of the premises of the movie, and it's a kids movie, but it's not, and it's one of the premises of the movie is that you're not really dead until nobody remembers you. And it's a really powerful concept. And I've always believed that. I've always believed, because I've worked with some of the best copywriters, the best direct response marketing consultants. And so the resource site, there's a lot of people there that are still alive, thank God. But there are quite a few that are no longer with us. And I think that was my way of saying, they're not going to be dead for a long time because I'm remembering them. And it's interesting because I had a near-death experience myself only 4 months ago. I had a stroke, and I really thought, I thought I did it. I thought I was done, and I survived it. And I realized that I had the book and I had my resource site, so at least I did my part of remembering them and almost remembering me. And now that I'm alive and I want to go out and continue to remember the greats of marketing, and not from a nostalgia point of view. I really believe, and I have chapter 2 of my book, which is a little repetitive, but I drill it home on original source. It's not so much let's remember the dead and the people that came before us for the sake of remembering them. They taught us fundamentals that are still applicable today online, and they never worked on the internet. And so I set the book up to have that chapter, and then chapter 3 is how paying postage made me a better marketer. And that was how how direct mail helped me in online marketing, which is critical too. And then I went into lists and offers and creative, but I really needed to set that up. So I just wanted to put that out there because it's not a stroll down memory lane. It's more, really understanding why we need the fundamentals, why original source matters, why, paying postage made me a better marketer and can make you a better marketer. And those are some basic things that I knew I wanted to cover in this book, and I covered them early, and then I went into the fundamentals through my stories. And I mean, the book's not a memoir, but it definitely is through my stories and through my experiences that I illustrate most of the points.
Yeah, I mean, it was super applicable, I think. And when I was going through it, I was like, oh, you've done a tremendous job of weaving in story, but then actionable points. And, I was kind of going through and thinking, I was like, if I was to tell people to read this book, because literally I've got people in my team and they're definitely going to be reading this book and they're getting a copy to read. I was like, but who would I say it's for? And I was like, well, you can say it's marketers because there's many marketing principles and advertising principles in there. But I was like, really, anyone that has a business needs to know these fundamentals, because I know there was one great quote in there where I think you mentioned it's like, doesn't matter how successful you are, how tremendous your business is doing, you should always have your hands in some way, shape or form touching on your marketing, even if it's outsourced or anything like that.
Yes, that's any entrepreneur. In fact, I think it's in the first chapter. I give 9 reasons why every entrepreneur should understand their marketing, even if they're not doing the marketing. And it's sort of like, I guess the big thing, it's on the flap of my book. It's like marketing isn't everything, it's the only thing. And that's not saying that, you have to, and I'm not, look, I was a very aggressive marketer at Boardroom. I don't think I'm an aggressive marketer. Like my Sunday, when you said, you had to buy something from one of my Sunday blogs but I wasn't even selling it until the PS really.
Yeah.
I was really writing a story, and then I PS with an offer this was for the Jim Rutz swipe file. But I never send out very rarely send out an email that just sells. I mean, every one of my emails is content with sells, which is another concept which I wrote a blog called Fishing Without Bait. And that was a really interesting thing that I learned it from Dean Jackson, but it's basically, I mean, here's the metaphor. You're on a lake and there's fish in the water, and that's your prospects. And most people will throw a rod in the lake with bait on it, and the bait could be, a welcome mat or a lead generator or whatever. Not a tripwire. Tripwires, you blow up your customers. That's not good. But it's something that you put in the water. The fish hook on it. You bring them in, and then you get them in some funnel, and you sell them and all that. That's a fine way to sell, and if you have good product and you get it in their hands. and then you sell them other things and they buy it. It's a nice model. My model, which a lot of people are doing now, is instead of the fish in the water, I put the pole aside, the fishing pole aside, and what I do is I shine a light, a spotlight on the water all the time. That would be my content. That would be my blog. That would be anything that I want to do to touch that audience. And what happens is, when it's a slower process for sure. It's, Joe Polish, my buddy, calls me the director of sales prevention, but I'm not really preventing sales. I'm just making it so that I'm letting my audience know I'm here when you need me. I'm here when you're ready, but I'm not going to, force you to buy anything, but I'll give you opportunities. I'll give you the things that you want to know. And so the concept is with the spotlight, which is my content all the time. And when they're ready, the fish will jump into the boat without bait. And I mean, there is some bait in the spotlight sort of, but I'm not like throwing it out there and say, get it now. And I don't usually do urgency. I mean, sometimes I have a deadline. Most times I don't. So it's kind of counter to a lot of what most people do online today. So I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but I really think it's an interesting model for me at my stage in my career, because I'm not, I don't need the orders for cash flow. I want the orders because people want to learn and people want the information. And then one other thing, when you said, it reminded me when you said, who's this book for? I have a blurb on the back of the book from Dan Kennedy. So in the spirit of remembering one of my great mentors, he wrote, Brian Kurtz has put together a definitive presentation of direct marketing as apart from all other marketing. And he's making the distinction of direct marketing as measurable marketing as opposed to general advertising. He says pros will find it fascinating, and I think that's true. They might know a lot of it, but they'll see the concepts through story. And then those new to the disciplines will find a vivid crash course. Pinhead executives in big dumb corporations wasting oceans of money on utterly unaccountable brand and image and ego advertising should be forced at gunpoint to read it. Ogilvy was right when he ranted to his own agency staff that only the mail order people knew what the hell they were doing. And were Ogilvy alive, he would applaud Brian's work here. And that was like an amazing thing. I mean, to be compared to, to be applauded by David Ogilvy from the grave was, I have it as my first blurb on the back of my book. So, but the book is I think it's for, pros and novices alike. And I think I get the concepts that are a little more complicated in the book to get everybody to understand them. It might be a little basic for some pros, but I think they'll appreciate how I approach those topics. So
yeah, 100%. And I think you definitely find the right balance, because I find, especially like if I kind of mirror across a lot of what you're doing into the social realm, you've got people that are just running ads and they're like precious, like opt in, buy now, and then you've got people in probably the camp of like Gary Vaynerchuk, where they're just 100% content. And I think that they forget to throw that little bit of bait into the spotlight, like you mentioned. Like when I read your emails, and like I said, most of the time I'm like I either buy or I'm very close to buying every single time, because when I read it I'm like, it's great, it's in story, it's not forced, and it's something that I just want. But I think that a lot of people kind of get stuck in the middle, where they're like, I've been doing I do my content, but then they find it hard to then transition across to making that, like to putting that bait out there, which I think you do tremendously well. But I know on social media, everyone's like, well, Gary Vee just told me to just do content. And then, there's these advertising guys like me and Facebook advertising going like, well, let's get leads in, let's measure it, let's do the direct response marketing, and finding that perfect balance kind of in the middle. So like for someone that is like maybe a little bit earlier on in their career, whether they're marketing for other people or for themselves, which of the two avenues do they need to find the perfect balance for them? Should they go heavy on one first and then transition to the other? How do you like kind of see that in the world?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not starting out, and I'm not in a total cash flow crunch. So I think that it's easy for me to say go for the content only and work your offers into the content if it's if it's doable, because I always think that developing a relationship first, everything is not a revenue event, but everything's a relationship event. So I think that, really getting into the relationship will give you a much longer term business. Unfortunately, and I don't slight people from doing this, because they need cash. They need to, they need to make money. So I can't say don't do, the bait and the hook and the tripwire. But, I think that it's important for certain businesses. I will say, though, that there's the middle ground that you could go is, because I do think that email is still the killer app. It's still, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on Instagram, or, you're doing all kinds of social media, getting people onto an email list and developing a relationship, because you can't really do that as well in short snippets on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So I think a good approach would be, to try to, from Facebook, instead of, you may need an offer, but make the offer so attractive that they want to opt in to your email list. And that would be the best approach. Other approaches would be, if you have a product or something you want to sell, and I'm not a fan or a foe of affiliate offers, but it's a great way to get started. So if you can find some affiliates that have an audience that's very similar to yours, it's a really good way to get started. It's one element of your marketing plan, but if you can have and you have to give away half the revenue in an affiliate deal. So you say, I'm not paying for the list, but you are paying for the list by giving them 50%. But if you can do some affiliates to get started, ramp up a little bit, get opt-ins, develop an email list, then develop a relationship, that's a really good way to get started. And I also think that, something like a PLF launch is a really good way as well. Because, I'm a big fan of, what Jeff Walker does. I'm in his mastermind, and, I don't do launches, but I marvel at what the best launches are, giving away your best content for free. And that's, and you have to have confidence that you're going to come up with more best content. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be in this business. So I think that, that's another way of you're not really, you're giving away, we'll say in pre-launch content, you're giving away some of your best stuff in the pre-launch videos. You may do an Ask Me Anything webinar where you just spill your guts to whatever they want to know. And then you sell something that might be a little repetitive, but it's also, other new stuff. And maybe, it's other best stuff. And I think that that's another way to maybe bridge the gap of, order, go for the order versus go for just content. And I am in the middle, because I have, now that I was given a second lease on life, I've got some time. I'm a patient marketer. So I'm just down the middle, where content, I'll throw out an offer maybe in the PS. I don't do affiliates just by choice. Sometimes I'll sell somebody else's book, like if it's a free book or something, but I won't take an affiliate commission. I do it because I think it's good stuff. And so I'm in a strange place, and I wouldn't recommend my model unless you got some time and you really want to romance your audience and just share openly with them. And this Sunday I'm going to do a something about Dan Kennedy, which, he's been such a big force in my life. So, and I don't even know if I'll sell something in the PS or not, but I might, but I'll give away something, I'll give away. In fact, I think I'm going to give away, Dan Kennedy spoke in the 2014 event, and I'll probably give a link to his presentation from that event, which was amazing. So, I think giving away stuff is really important. But again, if you're you never want to be desperate for cash in your business. But if you are, you've got to make some kind of arrangement to get some cash in the door. But then again, one other thing, you don't have to get all the cash in the door. So you can, for example, I'll make it very simple. You're advertising on Facebook, you give away, we'll say, a $10 special report, which, you're not going to, and it's very valuable. You're not going to make your media dollars back. You're not going to make your money back on that. But if you have a long view of this, and that's why lifetime, I have a lot of this in my book about lifetime value and calculating what the value of a customer is. If you have at least that, that's a big step also. So at least you get some of your money back, but you don't get all of it, and you know how much you can spend before you can go back to Facebook and spend some more money. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, I don't have one answer, because I know that some people are, need to have an order a lot quicker than I do. But I think there's a lot of ways to swing it. And, affiliate programs are good, and launches are good, and, low priced offers and getting the money more on the back end is good. So there's a lot of different models. And there's, of course, going right out with an order. But that's not my preferred method, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And a couple of things that I also noticed in the book, and like recurring themes, and obviously I got to meet you when I went to my mentor Ben Simkin's mastermind over in New York, which was amazing. And a lot of things, and it's funny, I think, in the online industry, where I know a lot of things that you reference is all like you reference your 100 and 0 principle and things like that, which is around connections and relationships. And you said it before, not everything is a revenue event, but it is a relationship event. Some people I find, and I've been guilty of this in the past, is where we're working online. So it's very easy to get insular and you're like, cool, it's just me in the big wide world. But a lot of the things that I see and I hear, and you get to share and promote many people's works and have many mentors and connections out there, is from getting out there and building those relationships. So can you just share a little bit about that 100 and 0 principle? And I've got a couple other questions down that line as well.